and all the other stakeholders, Congolese stakeholders, in as far as the Congo is concerned. These are political parties from the opposition, civil society, and others. That document, or that agreement, was implemented. Its implementation took a couple of years. We went from just an agreement or just that document to a transition government, which was put in place for 3 years. After that government was in place, elections were held. Prior to elections, a constitution was adopted. And after that constitution was adopted, elections were organized, the very first free and fair elections after the 1960. And successive elections were organized. So the implementation of that agreement was close to 100%, meaning we shifted from a transitional government to an elected government, elected institutions, until we left office in 2019. So the document or the agreement was fully implemented.
Thank you so much. It's Zianda Ngobo from Newsroom Africa. I've got several questions. If you could just tell us what was the nature of your discussions with President Mbeki just now, and what brought you to South Africa to have this particular meeting. But also, maybe you can give us your assessment of why the situation in the Eastern DRC remains so fragile. Just yesterday, the M23 said they wouldn't be participating in the meeting in Luanda. So how do you resolve this if people don't want to come around the table? And just lastly, from my side, what do you make of the semi-DRC withdrawing its troops? What do you think the consequences of this withdrawal will be in the attempts to actually get peace there?
Well, those are very many questions. I don't think I'll remember all of them, but thank you. My meeting with former President Mbeki stems from an invitation. When we met in Windhoek, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, he wanted to know what it is that was happening in the Congo. So he invited me, and that's why I came to see him. 2 or 3 of the questions, I'm not the spokesman of the M23, so why did they not go to a meeting or not? I'm not very conversant with that. They definitely have their reasons, and you might have other channels to ask them that. But what was the third question?
The third one was, what do you believe the consequences of semi-DRC withdrawing from the Eastern DRC are going to be, given how fragile the situation remains, and you know the people who are supposed to be sitting around the table are not coming to the party?
Well, I haven't been following very closely the situation or the deployment, and of course the announcement of the withdrawal of some forces in the DRC. But our take has always been, and this is what I said a couple of weeks ago, that considering the situation, the solution that we adopted way back in 2002, 2003, because back then we also had close to the same kind of situation, where you have a multitude of armed forces, various armed groups. Today what is new is that you now have mercenaries who've been employed by the government forces. Our attitude back then was to ask each and everyone to leave. Each and every force was to leave, and that's exactly what happened. And that's what I believe directly or indirectly facilitated the peace process that that started immediately after. But is it the same solution that we can apply to the current situation? I believe part of it, yes, can apply the same solution. But considering that the problem is much more deeper than what everybody thinks it is, you have to go into the internal dynamics of what's happening in the Congo and definitely leave out this blame game of thinking that everything else that's happening is as a result of someone else. At one given point in time, we have to ask ourselves, is it not us, the problem, or our problem, and how do we solve it as Congolese? So what are the consequences of Samir DRC pulling out? Well, I don't see any major disturbances in as far as the withdrawal is concerned, because these are forces, as far as I know, that were deployed in a given area, which is areas around Goma. Any implications further than that, well, probably time will tell.
Mr. Former President, thank you for making time for us. My name is Muluko from ENCA. I just want to understand, considering the fact that early this month you called a meeting with the opposition leaders in the DRC and civil society, how do you, or maybe what were the solutions proposed by that particular meeting in terms of resolving the crisis there? But also, do you by any chance personally have intentions of returning as president of the DRC, given the crisis there?
The meeting that was called had its roots in one analysis that we made. We analyzed the situation and came to the conclusion that everybody else is talking about the Congo except the Congolese. You go to Nairobi, everyone is talking about the Congo. You come to South Africa, well, I can see the interest. Everyone wants to know what's happening in the Congo. But the Congolese themselves seem to be ignored. So the objective was, let's get together, civil society, opposition, and anybody else who's interested in our country, church leaders also, so that we can iron out and especially try to analyze the situation. What is the role of each and every player in what's going on in the Congo? What's the role of the government and civil society and, of course, the opposition? Well, the second question, meaning, am I ready? No, listen. We are ready to work, honestly work for peace, actively work for peace, and that was our attitude 22 years ago when we came to Sun City and signed the agreement. Our attitude today, being much more informed, is definitely to stand up again and be on the move, work for peace in any capacity that we can.
Mr. President, the role of the region and neighboring countries and the international community, what could be the role of other stakeholders outside the DRC in assisting the DRC again to have a peace process, as we see that Luanda talks are very shaky. It looks like it's a start and go. What must happen? What can lead to the lasting solution for the DRC?
In 2018, I participated in one of the last meetings, I believe, of the SADC my last meeting as sitting head of state. And I told the leaders back then that I was happy, I was leaving, but that the Congo was no longer the old man of the region. Old man meaning the weakling of the region, SADC region and the region of the Great Lakes. That was my belief in a strong Congo, a Congo that was on track. But yes, 6 years later, we're almost close to square one, the point of departure. Now, what can all these other countries do? I believe it should not be a cyclic thing where 5 years down the road you have peace, 10, 15 years later you have war. No, the Congolese people don't want that. I believe we have to go back to the basics. For close to 16, 17 years, the Congo was stable. Not 100% stable, but stable enough for it to move forward in as far as economic development and other areas were concerned. So what do? I believe we have to go back to the basics. The basics meaning that we have to ask ourselves the question, where have we gone wrong? And I believe where we've gone wrong is that a number of mistakes have been made in as far as respect of rule of law, the constitution, governance, and all those. We have to go back to that. What can these regional countries or regional neighbors of the Congo do? Probably the same thing as in 2002, support a process or a peace process and move forward. You've talked about how shaky the peace process in Rwanda is. I believe that it's just the dynamics. People have not yet oiled the machine, but hopefully things will get back on track and people will start honestly talking of peace.
Mr. President, hello, Nellie Payton from Reuters. How do you respond to President Tshisekedi's accusation that you are an accomplice of the Congo River Alliance or the M23, and what is your relationship with those groups?
Well, if at all I was, the word you use is what? An accomplice?
Accomplice, I believe.
Well, the situation could not have been what it is. It could have been very different. So those are just baseless. Next time you see him, ask him to give you the proof of what he's saying. So that's all I can say.
In terms of Rwanda, which has been accused, at least by Pretoria, President Cyril Ramaphosa saying they are backing the M23. What's been your assessment? And if indeed they do have a hand in destabilizing your country, how should the international community then deal with Rwanda?
Well, I haven't heard President Ramaphosa, and I'm not going to either support or contradict what he said. I haven't heard him. My attitude to everything that's happening I can resume it in just one question. If I am weak, whose fault is it? Is it the fault of my neighbor or my enemy, or is it my fault? If and when you answer that question, then you'll definitely find a solution to the problem that you have. And the Congo cannot continue to be this crybaby in the region, talking about how weak it is and how strong everybody else is. That, to me, is not the right approach. Now, how does or will the international community deal with the situation? Well, I'm not part of that particular international community, but as a Congolese, what interests me and what interests the Congolese people is how do we deal with the situation ourselves. And I believe that should be the vantage point from where we'll be looking at things. We should be looking at things.
As a part of the solutions that you believe need to be implemented in the DRC, does this include a nation-building process, and what would that look like, and who would form part of it?
We earlier talked about the Sun City Agreement. The Sun City Agreement laid the foundation for what you might call a nation-building process. I don't think that anybody, mediators, facilitators, will do anything better than what we did in Sun City. I doubt that they will do that. And that's why I talked about going back to the basics, because from that particular agreement, we came out of that three years later with a constitution which laid the foundation for what you're talking about: nation building, institution building, elections, and the rest was supposed to follow. So that, to me, could be the approach.
Do you regret supporting President Tshisekedi during the first term?
I don't live with regrets. No. You make mistakes in life, they make you stronger, and if you're weak, they make you weaker. I believe I'm stronger now because of the mistakes that we made. Up to us to correct those mistakes.
Final question.
Two more questions, and then let's not abuse the hospitality of the foundation.
Now, he is a dictator. 4 more questions. 4 more questions, yeah.
There are rumors, today there are rumors that there could be a coup d'etat or a rebellion in Katanga. Do you think there's a risk of that?
Well, the risk is across the country, it's not only in Katanga. The risk is across the country. 2.3 million square kilometers of the Congo is at risk. So,
At risk of a rebellion or a coup d'etat?
At risk of turmoil anywhere in the Congo. Yeah. So it's not only Katanga or one given region.
Just a final one from my side. Do you think that your successor, President Tshisekedi, is part of the ongoing problem, and for as long as he is in the position, perhaps these problems will never be resolved? Is that your impression? But also, if you were to explain in simple terms to an outsider, sum up the pertinent problems confronting your country. If you were to say, the problem is here, these are the root causes. And of course, we see how that problem is manifesting itself.
Well, I'll sum up by saying this. I believe the problem in the Congo, you rightly said so, the problem is President Felix, the solution is President Felix. Now, how do you understand that? How do you turn that left and right? Up to you. But critical decisions have to be made. And in critical times, you have to make critical decisions. And these are critical times for the Congo. But as far as we are concerned, well, like I said, we intend to be very much involved in everything that's happening, especially in as far as peace is concerned, and to move around instead of it just being a SADC thing or East African, for it to be our own initiatives, and go each and everywhere where we believe that we can bring about positive change, positive news, be it in the East, which we are preparing to do, be it in the South, in the North, and the West.
Merci beaucoup, Mr. President.
Thank you.